Using Garryflex. When metal comes into contact with moisture, either from increased relative humidity or direct contact with water in the presence of oxygen, an electrochemical reaction takes place. This involves the transfer of electrons from the metal at the anode area to the oxygen at the cathode area via the water, which acts as a pathway or electrolyte. This type of reaction is also known as an oxidation-reduction reaction, as the metal is oxidized, meaning it loses electrons, while the oxygen is reduced, meaning it gains electrons. The oxidized metal at the anode site then goes on to react with the reduced oxygen at the cathode site, producing corrosion. This reaction is summarized in the equations on the screen. Corrosion, or rust as it is better known in the case of iron, is not just one chemical compound, but many. Depending on the conditions, different corrosion compounds can form from the varying quantities of iron, oxygen, hydrogen, and other elements that are present. Each compound has a different color, texture, and hardness. Determining whether to remove this corrosion, or rust, can be hard, and sometimes iron objects may be corroded but still stable, and will have a compacted red-brown corrosion layer. In this instance, it may not be necessary to reduce the corrosion, particularly if the object is kept in a controlled environment. However, active corrosion, which is often powdery or flaking and bright orange or yellow, should be reduced or removed in order to prevent it from continuing to spread. This will usually require an abrasive material of some kind. In this video, we will demonstrate how to safely remove active corrosion from robust iron objects in your collection. Garryflex abrasive blocks are made from rubber with an abrasive grit made up of aluminium oxide distributed throughout. Like sandpaper, they come in different grades of abrasiveness, including extra coarse, coarse, medium, and fine. As with sandpaper, you should begin at the coarser grade and work your way down to the finest. However, it may not always be necessary to begin with the very coarsest grade. You should always use your judgment and assess the level and hardness of the corrosion. Garryflex can also be cut into different shapes and sizes, allowing for better access to harder to reach or awkward areas. Health and safety. Using Garryflex can produce a lot of dust and debris, both from the abrasive blocks and the corrosion on your object. Always wear an appropriate mask, preferably face test fitted, when using Garryflex to reduce corrosion, and work in a well-ventilated area. Additionally, if working on rusty and dirty iron objects that have been buried or have been stored outside, ensure that you have been vaccinated for tetanus. To reduce rust using Garryflex, you will need appropriate personal protective equipment such as clean nitrile gloves and a dust mask, a clean padded work area such as Plasterzote covered with acid-free tissue, a support for the object if it is needed, clean soft bristle brush to remove debris, clean stiff bristle brush to remove soiling, masking tape to cover the metal for all of your brushes, and Garryflex. You may also need a scalpel or box cutter to cut the Garryflex to the required shape and size. Before you begin, if your object is heavily soiled, it may be helpful to first brush away any soiling using a stiff bristle brush. Once your object is clean, you can begin to use the Garryflex. Beginning at one point, gently rub the Garryflex block against the surface of the object to remove the corrosion. Do not press too hard. Using the soft bristle brush, clear away any loosened corrosion and debris from the abrasive blocks. This will allow you to better judge how far you have progressed with the corrosion reduction. It is always best to perform an overall clean of your object with each grade of Garryflex before moving on to the next grade, rather than completely finishing one area at a time. If the object has an even layer of corrosion, clean the entire object with one grade before moving on to the next. If the object is unevenly corroded, aim to level out the corrosion as much as possible before moving down to the next grade by focusing on the more corroded areas. Only remove active or flaking corrosion. Remember that the goal is to reveal the stable corrosion layer. This may vary in color from red-brown to purple or blue, depending on the object, but you should not reveal any bare, shiny metal. Once your object has been cleaned, it is recommended that a protective layer of microcrystalline wax is applied to prevent future corrosion issues. To see a demonstration, refer to the waxing video in this series.